You're still watching the AM show right here on Joy News, your home of independent, fearless, and credible journalism. For our big stories this morning, we take a look at Ghana's extractive industry and the dominance of foreigners and how it has impacted our ability to maximize these resources and how the manifestos of the two major political parties address what has become an existential problem that we are facing. And I mean, we have a great panel with us this morning. We have the co-chair of Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, that is Dr. Steve Mantiel. We also have Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe, convener for Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining, as well as Godwin Ama, the General Secretary, Association of Small-Scale Miners. But like I said, both major political parties understand that there's a lot more for us to do in the fight against galamsey and the influx of foreigners in that sector. So let's take a look. Let's quickly run through what both political parties, I'm talking about the NDC and the NPP, the flag bearers, are proposing to do if given the mandate come December 7, 2024, what they intend to do in their fight or the approach to eliminate this canker that we're experiencing. So first, let's start with Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia. He says that the next NPP government will invest in the geological investigation of mineralized zones from 2025 to 2029 to de-risk small-scale mining. He also says that the next NPP government will establish a minerals development bank to finance viable local mineral projects. In addition to that, the next NPP government will ensure the application, processing, and licensing of small-scale mining ends and the Minerals Commission. And then he says the next NPP government, his government, God willing, will reduce withholding tax for small-scale gold exports to 1% to discourage smuggling and increase tax receipts. These are his promises. And he also says that they would establish an integrated traceability system for mineral resources. And that is how they intend to approach the fight against galamsey. They would also scale up the use of the mercury-free gold catcher machine technology for profitable and sustainable small-scale mining. And that is coming from the camp of the New Patriotic Party. What are the NDC proposing? Well, I mean, in addition to that, they're also saying that they will aggregate and utilize the reclamation fund to implement land reclamation programs. That is still on the NPP government. And so now we take a look. They're also saying that they are going to adequately resource the PMMC to establish more gold buying centers as small-scale mine gates to purchase all mined gold. Now, let's look at what the NDC government or the next NDC government is proposing in the fight against galamsey. They want to wage a war. Former President John Dramani Mahama says he wants to wage a war against the use of cocoa farms for illegal mining activities, that is galamsey, and reclaim degraded cocoa lands. How does he intend to do this? He also says he would ensure that mining operations are not conducted in unapproved areas, such as water bodies, and that the concession holders rehabilitate impacted areas. And I think that is one of our major problems. After we dig and find the resources, we just leave the land to its fate. He also says that he will facilitate equipment financing and mining inputs, research and standardization, gold recovery optimization, and post-mining land reclamation services. And this is also important. In addition, he wants to set up a Ghana Gold Board, like Cocoa Board, but for gold. So Gold Board to regulate the small-scale mining sector. This board will restructure the small-scale mining sector. And that's still on the NDC's promises on what they want to do. They also say that they want to decentralize regulatory and licensing processes for artisanal miners and implement a tree-for-life reforestation policy with cocoa, palm, and rubber. In addition to that, the next NDC government will, that's continuing from there, in a Blue Water Initiative, and heal and harness the environment by turning areas degraded by illegal mining into hubs of economic and ecological recovery. We are going to discuss this with our panel, but it's important to know that the problem is, we have minerals in this country, and much like fire, it has good sides or advantages and disadvantages. Gold has done so much to propel our development agenda. But why is it that the same thing, the same mineral that is giving us great feats or great, things to look forward to, is causing us more harm. Is it causing us more harm than good? That's the question I want to be asking. But let's get on Zoom now and speak to our panel. First, let me start with Dr. Steve Mantiao, and he's co-chair of Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative. Doc, thank you so much for joining the conversation. Is that Dr. Steve Mantiao?
Yes.
Great.
My pleasure to be on this panel.
Okay. Do I hear Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe as well?
Yes, please.
Great. And then we also have Godwin Ama, the General Secretary, Association of Small Scale Miners, also with us.
Hello.
Great. So let's begin. I'll start with you, Dr. Steve Mantiao. Doc, so there's a growing trend of Chinese companies taking over Ghanaian-owned companies, and there are rumors that a Chinese company is even preparing to take over the mines at Achim with a growing presence of Chinese firms. What does the future really hold for the Ghanaian-owned mining operations in Ghana?
Well, thank you very much. And I will begin by making the point that all over the world, countries that have been able to optimize value from their natural resources are those countries that are not only playing the role of spectators, but are actively involved in the extraction, either directly or indirectly. Directly in the sense of empowering local enterprises to be involved in the extraction, or indirectly by buying stake in profitable mines, so that beyond the fiscal collections, you are able to also derive additional revenue from dividend payments. Secondly, I need to emphasize the fact that there's a certain similarity in the approach to dealing with the illegalities in the small-scale mining sector by both parties, which I'm very pleased with. You can see a gradual shift from the use of brute force to now providing incentives for miners to want to formalize. It is when they formalize that we'll be able to know where they operate and regulate their activities. However, I think we may have to unpack the policy propositions that the various parties have made. Because what we are seeing is just broad, sweeping policy commitments. I think when we unpack them, we'll be able to understand whether or not they are feasible or not. Currently, as we speak, almost all the small-scale miners operating in Ghana today, I mean about 90 or more than 90% of them are operating illegally, because the Minister for Lands and Natural Resources is not signing applications for license renewals. And this actually is not good enough, because it does not provide incentive for new applicants to want to even go and attempt to formalize their activities. And that is why I like one of the parties, I think, committed to decentralizing the licensing process, so that the key stakeholders on the ground, including the regulatory bodies, are the ones that actually process the licenses at the point where the mining activity takes place. It makes it easy, because one person, one minister cannot sign the thousands upon thousands of applications that are referred to him or her every now and then by the Minerals Commission for signing. And so I think it makes sense to decentralize and make sure that we fast-track applications, so that that serves as incentive for illegal miners to want to now come into mainstream and be regulated. There are other things that we can talk about as we move on in this conversation.
Right. Let me go to Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe. He's convener for Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining. First, I want to get a sense of your thoughts. What do you think are the primary factors driving the increasing dominance of foreign firms in Ghana's mining sector, Doc?
Well, I'm not too sure whether it is a new thing. We allowed, when the colonialists came in, to outlaw what we Ghanaians did. And it was till the PNDC era that we then allowed small-scale mining to begin, and we then brought in Ghanaians to also do it. So the initial craze was more the Europeans and the Australians and the Americans doing it, and now we're beginning to see Chinese into it. And for me, I'm not too worried if the foreigners are coming in formally, though that also has challenge. And I agree with Dr. Mantiao that the only way in which Ghana would be able to develop is when we have Ghanaians owning the heights of industry. And so we cannot continue to play subservience and just depend on royalties and taxation. And I hear some of the proponents of keeping on doing that, saying that exploration is risky and all of that. But we need to invest into so that we can get stakes out of it. We would own how this goes. But the challenge with the Chinese is their involvement in the illegal mining. And that's, you look at the data, right from when we had Operation Vanguard going on, there's a lot of Chinese who are involved in it. And to make the situation worse currently is the fact that when arrests are made, and there are quite a lot of arrests that have been made, if you consider even those who've gone into the forest, who have over 200 arrests that are pending in the court. The challenge is that we are unable to prosecute the Chinese. And I think there's some laxity in there. You had a situation where a prosecutor goes to court and tells the judges that the 2 Chinese who are being prosecuted have been cremated. And, you know, fortunately for us, this judge stuck to his grounds and asked that the ashes should be produced. Now this prosecutor comes back to come and say that, he was deceived by the sureties. And these people who are supposed to be ashes are now walking around the Wasa area, and they have to be produced. And then that's one bad bit of it. But there was a policeman involved in that, Ghanaian, who is being prosecuted. Then you also have the worst one, where the Chinese, when they come to most of these courts, we get the excuse that there are no interpreters to help with the case, and most of them are left. And so we need to deal with these various pockets of the issues when it comes to the issues of foreign involvement. And we need to definitely, and again, I agree with Dr. Mantiao when he talks about the fact that when you look into the manifestos of both parties, they seem to want to, put Ghanaian center stage and make sure that we can regularize, the small scale mining and make it more sustainable. But one of the things I see missing in all of them, their manifestos, is the fact that one of the major challenges is the lack of regulatory independence, so far as the sector is concerned. And it is important that if we are going to really get the sector to work properly, then we need to provide regulatory independence, so we allow the professionals to do their work and not get the politicians involved. That's why I also agree with Dr. Mantiao about the need to decentralize. But beyond decentralizing, we should make sure that decisions that are taken by the regulatory body, not politically allied persons. Another thing that I also find missing in both manifestos is dealing with those who currently have done wrong. You have the likes of Akonta Mining, you have the likes of the former Bosome Frenho, MC, who confessed to an illegality. Nothing has been done to him. I don't see that. They will not follow the example of Otufo, who recently has destroyed some chiefs because they were found culpable. So we get to the point where we ensure that those who wrong us are punished. All these things, lofty ideas they put on paper, really would come to naught.
Okay, we'll get into, dissecting what each party is proposing. But let me hear now from the General Secretary of the Association of Small-Scale Miners, and that's Godwin Ama. Godwin, thank you for joining the conversation. So I want to hear from you the conditions, or what the conditions are like for Ghanaian workers employed by Chinese-managed mining companies. What are their lives like? Do I have Godwin online with me? Godwin, if you can hear me, please unmute.
Yes. Good morning.
Great. Morning, yeah.
Yeah.
So help us paint the picture of, okay, you got the question?
No, my line went off. I think I'm having challenge with the internet here. So if
while we have you here, we will make the most of it. So help us paint the picture of the lives or the living conditions or working conditions of Ghanaians working in Chinese or foreign-owned mining companies.
First of all, I'll say good morning to all your listeners and then the co-panelists. It will be very difficult for me to answer that because I don't know how the living conditions are in these large-scale operations and then the small-scale operations because we've not done any sort of visit and also to understand the processes that they go through. But if you look at generally the operations of the Chinese, especially or foreigners, especially within the illegal sector, like the illegal mining operations, you realize that they don't even follow any law at all. They are working in forest reserves, which they are supported by some politically exposed people. And the issue of health and safety is not there. Land reclamation is not there. Everything done in those areas, if you go and then watch, you realize that human rights abuses are also there. But as a matter of fact, I cannot really pinpoint that A, B, C is done. So what we hear from the media reportage and also some of the miners or some of the communities that these illegal operations are taking place. But generally, illegal operations realize that because there's no sustainability, they don't really invest into health and safety and all the standards that needs to be done when mining formally. So that's what I can say.
Right.
But when I look at the money, I just want to comment on the policy direction from the both political parties in terms of the manifesto, and I can say that when you look at it, they are almost similar, but we need to understand how they are going to implement these policies. For instance, looking at geological data that the NPP says, how much is it going to cost the states? How are they going to get a fund? And if the concessions, we get the prospected land, how is it going to be distributed to the small-scale miners, but not people who are connected to the things that we should understand, also able to get access to funding in terms of finance. And I look at the NPP, the NDC also, they are looking at financing the small-scale mining sector. You cannot finance without having a proper data. Once you have the geological data, you can really plan and demonstrate that the minerals that you have there, you have that value. So if you don't have that value, then at the end of the day, no bank will be interested. And then the NDC, the NPP is also saying that they are looking at setting up a bank that will support and local, and if you underline the word, they say viable projects. So you can get viability when you also have the geological data. If you don't have any geological data to demonstrate, then there's no viability of the project because you know how much it will cost you to even unearth the minerals that is underground and all that. So it's very important that, as we said, we unpack them and then they demonstrate how they are going to implement some of these policies. Then you look at another area of the gold board, setting up of Ghana Gold Board. If you are setting up Ghana Gold Board, remember early 2017, there was a committee that was set by the NPP government, the Interministerial Committee, which has the same mandate of regularizing the small-scale mining sector. At the end of the day, what happened? They couldn't do what is expected of them, and there were allegations of them not even being accountable with resources that were given to them and all that. So if you set the gold board, what would be the role of the Minerals Commission? What would be the role of the EPA and all that? I think we should resource the Minerals Commission, the EPA, and then the police service, the security service, to be able to help regulate the sector than us setting another board, which is coming to do the same work that the Minerals Commission and the ET is already doing.
Hold for me, Godwin. Godwin, hold for me. We will actually get surgical with both proposals. But let me throw this question to Dr. Steve Mantiel. Doc, do you think that the Minerals Commission is equipped to manage this sector and handle all the issues that are coming out of it?
No, I don't. I do not think so. I think they are constrained by lack of adequate personnel. I'm currently speaking to you from the field, Bole, to be precise. And here we have a Minerals Commission office stationed at, WA, being responsible for Bole in Savannah region and nearby regions. I mean, that is not the kind of staffing or personnel presence at the mining areas that we need to be able to control and better regulate the activity. I think Bole, there's so much mining going on in Bole, in places like Tinga, Takulupe, Dollar Power and all that, which requires that we have a Minerals Commission office here in Bole. And then you can have Minerals Commission in other places, Upper West, Upper East, and so you reduce the distances. Look, traveling from here alone to even Dollar Power, we are in Bole, and Dollar Power is in the Bole district, but traveling from here to Dollar Power will take you not less than 2 hours. So the distances are quite huge, and so we need more staff, more personnel on the ground to better regulate. But having said that, let me quickly respond directly to why we have increased foreign presence in our small-scale mining sector. It's a function of lack of credit facilities for local miners to finance their operations. So it is not just the Chinese here in Bole. We find Burkinabes, Malians, Nigerians, and all that who are here financing the operations of the the illegal miners. They call them sponsors. They bring the money and they have a certain informal arrangement with you that whatever gold you produce, you sell to them. And when they get the gold, they do not actually export the gold through approved channels, which is Kotoka International Airport. They are so close to the border here, Ivory Coast, Burkina. So they cross the border with it, and we lose all the revenue opportunities associated with the activity. It is not surprising, therefore, when I think it was the current presidential candidate of the MPP visited Dubai, and we found out that there's a huge gap of about $5 billion of unaccounted for gold export in this country. Dubai claimed they had imported $7 billion worth of gold from Ghana, when the Bank of Ghana records show that we only exported $2 billion, which means $5 billion worth of gold is going out of this country through illegal or unapproved channels. And we need to be able to address this. Otherwise, the foreigners will continue to dominate and get all the benefits, and we get a pittance.
Right. Let me come to Dr. Ashigbe. Doc, I mean, do we actually have measures currently being taken to curb the environmental impact of, illegal mining? I've chanced on a research paper from the University of Ghana, which says the impact of Chinese involvement in Ghana's mining sector. Yeah, from the University of Ghana. And then there was another one, environmental degradation from illegal mining, the role of Chinese nationals, and that's from the University of Cape Coast. And these studies, they highlight the economic, environmental, social impact of Chinese involvement in Ghana's mining sector. And this isn't the first time we're seeing this. This has been going on for decades. Are there actually any measures being taken? And are these measures proving effective? Before we get into the manifestos.
Well, thank you very much. The evidence is, is what is right in front of us. When you look at the level of turbidity of our waters, when you look at the level of destruction of our forest, you look at the fact that, now you have the level of renal diseases on the right. You look at people sitting in their homes in Konongo, going to, nature's call in the morning and the whole place caving in. If you drive around now, the main roads, it's not, you don't need to go really deep into the forest to go find it. When you look at a river like Brim that my colleague, the small-scale miners, had spent a lot of effort trying to clean up. And now we have, we are getting all of that back again. So our challenge again, and so I see some of the parties talk about, new laws, it is just basically, we have all the laws, the policies, the directives in place. It is the issue about enforcing them. As we speak, the Draw River, Forest Reserve has been hit by some illegal miners that we don't know that Erastus has uncovered. But you look at the footage of Erastus, and this is just a journalist. He's been able to go there. He finds containers that have been put there. He finds excavators that have been put there. So, when my colleague talks about the fact that you need to strengthen the Minerals Commission, you need to empower the EPA, the police force, and let them work independently. So, and the history has been like that. Anytime you get close to an election, we abandon the fight against the illegality. And so, and because there are politically exposed persons who are involved in that, don't be so. If those in the fields know that nothing will happen to the politically exposed persons, why would they also stop? So yes, the damage that we are doing to our environment is serious, and we really are not doing anything to work at it, and we need to find ways to stop it.
To what each party is proposing. Now, the NPP is focused on, more stricter regulations and oversights to ensure that these foreign entities comply with Ghana's laws. The NDC, on the other hand, is proposing a more radical approach. They want to include a review, potential revocation of licenses and foreign companies that are not benefiting Ghana sufficiently. Which of these promises actually holds the keys to Ghana's quest for, a liberation from the effects of galamsey on our environment? I'll start with you, Dr. Mantiel.
Well, I think we need both measures. It should be a carrot and stick approach. As Dr. Ashigbe mentioned, if there have been some fraudulent activities in the past, they ought to be investigated and punished. While at the same time, we provide incentives for those who are doing the right stuff to continue doing the right stuff. I happen to have served on a panel that evaluated the end of project report of the Natural Resource Governance, Natural Resource and Environmental Governance Program, a World Bank supported program that was implemented in this country over a period of 10 years. And the end of project evaluation report concluded that over the period that we implement, sunk millions of dollars into trying to weed out illegalities in the forestry and the mining sector. These illegalities more than doubled. And the reason they doubled, according to the end of project report, was vested interest. Vested interest in the sense that those who have the power to check the illegalities were themselves the perpetrators of the illegalities. So if, for instance, there have been infractions of the law and an NDC government investigation leads to some politically exposed person and their involvement, of course, I think Professor Frimpong Boateng's expose or revelations on some of the illegalities that have gone on ought to be looked into, and those who may have actually offended the law will have to be punished. So I think we need a combination of tools to be able to ensure that we are able to mine sustainably and for the benefit of the larger Ghanaian population.
Doc, will you say, therefore, that what we really need is a political will to actually fight this menace?
Exactly. And for me, I get worried because the political class in this country are the perpetrators. And I say this without any equivocation. They are the perpetrators of the illegal mining. And they will tell you, party, yensika. So you need a leader who has the political will that I am not going to seek benefits from illegal mining for my party, that I'm going all out to ensure that I give the law enforcement agencies, the regulators, the space to be able to enforce the law. That is the only way. You don't want situations where politicians will be calling the CEO of the Minerals Commission that these are my boys, so please leave them. So political will is very important, but we also need a carrot approach where those who are doing the right things are supported. I'm not saying this because Godwin Ama is on this line, but this gentleman is doing so much, including even undertaking corporate social responsibility projects, building schools in areas where he operates. That people need to be identified and showcased as best examples of how small-scale mining can be done, and must be supported by the state to expand the operations. And because all the benefits they derive for themselves are retained within the Ghanaian economy. They are not expatriated in the form of profit to anywhere.
Oh, thank you, Doc. Let me go to Dr. Ashigbe now. Doc, so there are rumors. I mean, some of these reports, and I tried to look for them. I found a report on another network that detail how, you know, there's some potential takeover of the Achim mines. And these manifestos don't necessarily specifically address how we can actually truncate the influence or the impact of, you know, the activities of these foreigners. What do we do as a nation? And how do we influence or make, you know, both political parties include what we really need in their plans going forward, since they've already launched both manifestos? What do we do about this? I mean, the potential takeover of the Achim mine is a serious issue. What do we do?
Well, so thank you very much. So if you look into, again, so I think Dr. Mantia mentioned it, and then Godwin also mentioned it. The fact that both parties seem to want to regularize and make Ghanaians. Yes, you can hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, okay, so both parties would seem to want to make sure that Ghanaians take center stage. You take, for example, the MPP manifesto talks about to usher in a golden age of Ghanaian-owned small-scale mining for wealth and job creation. They speak about that. But I'll give you a typical, and they tell you that so if you've not seen that before, look at sleep.
Yeah.
Look at the way we've handled the issues of community mining. Community mining virtually have been taken over by politically exposed persons. So it is important that we go with, as Gordon said, and then Dr. Mantiao said, we need to unpack and look at how this is going to be done. The level of transparency that is required to ensure that we get Ghanaians to take center stage. And it's important. For me, it is really important that, these takeovers like that, we have a strategy as a nation to say, you have the likes of Godwin and some of the small-scale miners who have demonstrated that they are able to do it well. What stops any government from saying that I am going to pull all of these small-scale miners who have demonstrated based on their mining, based on their output, based on their expertise, and say, I am going to bring them together and then support them. And the point that Dr. Mantia makes about the fact the unavailability of financing and credit to, these Ghanaians. And so because of that, we play second fiddle to the foreigners. Bring them together, provide them that credit, and ensure that then they can, working together with them, make sure that the communities themselves, also have a stake in the business. So not only have you brought Ghanaians who have the wherewithal, have the expertise, the technical knowledge to be able to mine them, not only have you brought Ghanaian banks or even the development bank that have been created to be able to provide some easy financing, you also are going to also say that part of the equity of this business, you are going to put in the hands of the communities. And in there as well, you have a very transparent way in which you're doing that. Everybody sees what is going on, and get Ghanaians to now start pushing and saying that this particular mine, let's see how you do it. And then we replicate it. And that's why it's also going to be really very important when we find, and I think that point that the MPP makes about the geological survey, you find out that the Ghana Institute of Engineering, when they also did they also asked that. If you look at the CSO's environmental manifesto as well, they also raised that. Till we get to the point where we actually have have geologically surveyed our resources in this country. And again, government should find money, and the money can be found from the gold, to ensure that we actually do that, so that when these projects are going, you are very sure that it is bankable, and then you do them very openly. The challenge, the challenge for all.
It appears
to be able to fight this are themselves benefiting from this. I would also say it without equivocation that our political parties are funded by this illegal money. It's the reason why it's difficult for us to be able to deal with it. So your question, again, if we're going to be able to stop this, it would require very strategic intentions. And then we need leaders who are thinking beyond their parochial interests and saying that it does not matter, where, any of these small scale miners belong, whether they are NDC. We are bringing them together, and we do it so openly that everybody can go online and be able to check who are the owners of this. The communities can see what it is, and also that when you go into the communities, it's not just the chiefs that are taking advantage of it, but everybody can see it, and they can see what it is that is being done with it. So transparency is really going to be important, as we also make sure that the regulators themselves are also independent of the political establishment. And then we also make sure that we put national interest high above what everybody else wants to get into their pockets.
Right. And I found the documents I was looking for. It's reports from Business and Financial Times suggesting that Chinese investors have shown interest in acquiring stakes in several major mining operations, including the Achim mines. And while there has been no official confirmation, the possibility has sparked debate about the future of Ghana's strategic resources. And there's a quote here from a mining sector analyst. And it says, if the Achim mines fall under Chinese control, it could mark a turning point in the ownership of Ghana's most valuable mining assets. Godwin, how do you feel about this? Do you know for a fact if these Chinese investors have actually expressed interest in acquiring this Achim mine?
Yeah, first of all, the laws allow foreigners to participate in the mining sector. So if, for instance, I have a mine and I want to bring in, or an investor shows interest, I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Okay.
Because already that concession or that property is owned by a foreign entity already. And if the Chinese have expressed interest into it, I don't think it should bring any issue at all, because it's already owned by a large-scale operator who is also a foreign entity. So the Chinese presence, when they are doing it formally, when they are investing into operations formally, I don't think there's anything wrong. But once they are mining illegally, because you have, even when you look at most of the quarries in this country now, it's being operated by the Chinese because of access to finance. They have the finance, they go into the quarry. So most of the quarries that you see being owned by Ghanaians now have been taken up by the Chinese.
But Godwin, I think the question is this not of any consequence to us? Or how is this affecting local economies?
Once you have foreign dominating your mining sector, then the real benefit doesn't come to the country. What you get is only your taxes. So we need to look at the policy reforms that we have. To what extent are we going to allow foreign domination in our mines? And how are we going to benefit, even if the foreigners are in there? By looking at the whole supply chain. How do we position ourselves as a country? If we don't do that, then at the end of the day, you have the foreign domination, all the profits will go, because everything is exported raw.
Right.
If you look at the gold, whatever is exported raw. So what is the value for the country? Is it only the royalties that we take, or the taxes? So we need to have a radical approach in looking at it and say, look, if you are mining in this country, then refine your gold in here. Maybe X percentage should be refined, and then it's supplied to our local jewelers. Because as we speak now, the local jewelers, most of them are getting their gold from Dubai. If the small-scale miners are not giving, they just buy their gold from Dubai, because you not gold that is standardized, that is refined, so that you'll be able to get a proper jewelry done that you can hallmark. But if you don't have it and all your gold is going out and it's not refined, then at the end of the day, what is the value? So we should understand that once we allow foreigners to take over our mines, we will not get it. It will be like the South African issue where you have Joburg, people in South Africa investing and developing their communities. You have small-scale miners mining and developing the communities that they are in. But if you have the large operations being dominated by foreigners, then at the end of the day, there will be that capital flight. So we need to look at it and support Ghanaians. The manifesto should show clearly how, or consciously, how they will help the small-scale miners to move from the small to medium or large scale. It should be a deliberate government policy. When you are able to do that, then you create a lot of millionaires or billionaires within the mining space, and you retain the value in your country because they are not going to take the money elsewhere. But if there's no conscious way of developing the small-scale mining sector to grow, then at the end of the day, it will be a joke because everything will be in the hands of foreigners. Then at the end of the day, they will use those resources to develop their countries, and we'll go back there to do what? To ask them for change.
I know, right?
And you see, a lot of youth are traveling outside through the Mediterranean Sea, these treacherous or perilous borders, just to get to Europe. Why is it so? Because they are following where their resources are. The resources, when they are taken raw and value is not added, there are no job opportunities. So these young men and women will travel where their minerals have been taken to search for jobs and look at the dangers that they go through before they get to even Europe. Where still they go and they don't get the jobs that they need. So we need to look at it as a country and see how best we'll be able to retain value and also to let Ghanaians dominate in the mining space.
Let me throw that to Dr. Mantiel. Doc, so what's your reflection on the consequence, I mean, in terms of revenue generation for the country, if this consistent, growing presence of whether Chinese or foreign influence in our mining sector, what is the consequence of it to our economy?
As we speak, the greatest revenue contribution in the mining sector comes from large-scale operations.
Okay.
The small-scale operators contribute less than 2%.
Oh.
And this is the challenge we need to address. We need to flip it over. If government will provide support to small-scale operators, they can expand their activities, generate more revenue, and maybe pay more to the state. And whatever they retain also remain in country. And so in all activities, as I speak now, I'm about to enter a meeting with the law enforcement agencies, the regulators here in Bali. We are looking at what reforms are necessary to ensure that Ghanaians are able to produce more gold, sell to regularized or properly licensed buyers, exported through the proper channels so the state can take its due, and then we generate the needed revenues to finance our national development. So there's a whole revolution that needs to happen in the way we manage the mining sector. We shouldn't, again, on the question of Achim Mine was not owned by Ghanaians. It was owned by foreigners. So when we approach the conversation the way you did, then it creates the impression that we are okay with Americans, we are okay with all other foreigners except the Chinese. No, we are not against the Chinese. What we are in support of is for Ghana to be an active participant, an active player. And I see no reason why the Mineral Income Investment Fund, which was set up to optimize our value in the mining sector, will not consider using the massive resources at its disposal to buy into Achim Mine, if not to even buy the entire mine, to buy a stake in it, so that part of the profit to be derived from this mine will be retained within the national economy.
Thank you so much, Dr. Matthew. Dr. Ashigbe, let me throw a similar question to you. What does the future really hold for Ghana's mining sector if the current trend of foreigners, not specifically Chinese, but foreigners, the dominance they have continues?
I think, well, that point has been made. That's how we have the reason, and Gordon makes the reference to Johannesburg, and then so if you compare that to Obuasi. We've been mining gold as long as, Obuasi has been mining in Johannesburg. The only reason why Johannesburg is as developed as it is the fact that the monies were raised in Johannesburg to do the mining and retain there and develop there. But we, the 100 years, we got foreigners to come in here. They will give us some patents, but they take the real money out and they also do not add value to it. So I think I see it in some of the manifestos about the fact that, we're going to do some refinery, but it is really going to be, we will need to be very strategic about the fact that we've done this over how many years? How many years have we not been mining gold? Let's show the $1 millionaire, $1 millionaire, $1 billionaire that we've created out of it. We've not been deliberate to do that because we've allowed ourselves to be, to be split. And unfortunately, with this NDC MPP thing, it's even become worse. But the time has come for us, especially the citizens who hold sovereignty, to say that we need, and I like the word revolution, we need a radical change. There has to be a metanoia, a complete change of heart, of the fact that the way we have done mining all this while should not be the way we ought to go. We now have to move to the point where Ghanaians are at the point of ownership. And when we define Ghanaians, we should define it broadly. Ghanaians home and abroad. Where are the resources that we have? Where are the people who know it? How do we bring them together? And it has to be strategic. And I agree. The myth, funds, for example, could be brought in. And also for those who own the land, instead of they wanting to now say that I'm giving the land out to get royalty, they should give the land as equity into whatever it is that is going to do. So the value, the future value of whatever it is, the people who own the land should not say they want the money now. They should also put it in as investment. The likes of Gordon and Co. who have demonstrated, and that's the word, demonstrated, and it should be done openly so that we all can see it and say that these people, this is the evidence that they've demonstrated. They are brought together. And then we also can get Ghanaian banks, put Ghanaian banks also together to say, because we want to do something that is deliberately Ghanaian, we're bringing you here to then take it, so that when it comes to the interest on the loans that will even be given, it goes back to Ghanaian banks. If it comes into, the owners of the land, when the dividends start coming in, the returns start coming in, they also get it. If it comes to who they sell the gold to, again, it's deliberately to Ghanaians. And we can acquire the knowledge, we can acquire the resources. But the ownership, it's important that the ownership belongs to us. And we start producing, people who have actually made it, and then ensure that a lot of the resources also go into the communities that are made poorer. Because that's what we've done in Ghana.
Right.
Everywhere we mine, the people are made poorer, and those who, living in cities outside the place are the people who benefit. So when we start talking about ownership, we need to even disaggregate that and say the people in the communities, how do they also benefit? And make sure that we are very deliberate about that and have a policy change. Unfortunately, both parties do not, they've mentioned that, but we really need to hear them say, how are they going to get Ghanaians to take center stage and dominate? And I like that word Gordon used, dominate the sector, and not only gold. He talked about the issues around the quarries and all of that, the lithium and all the new minerals that are coming as well, the industrial minerals. We need to be deliberate to make sure that happens.
We are about wrapping up, but let's do a comparative and assessment to help our audience, understand what each party is proposing. So between the establishment of the gold board to ensuring that mining operations are regularized and, waging war against the use of cocoa farms for illegal mining, galamsey, and reclaiming degraded land, as against adequately resourcing the PMMC, that is according to Baumia, and aggregation and utilization of the reclamation fund to implement the land reclamation process, scale up the use of mercury-free gold, reducing withholding tax for small-scale gold export. Between these two manifestos, specifically on the fight against galamsey and the issues that are coming up in the mining sector, which of these is superior and meets us at the point of our needs, even if it needs some modifications along the line as we speak? Which of these manifestos is superior? Let me start with you, Dr. Chigweje. I just heard from you, so Dr. Mantiel, which of these manifestos between the NPP and the NDC is superior and meets us at the point of our need?
I think it's important to equip the Minerals Commission to be able to play its regulatory functions much better than they have done now. They must have an increased presence, and we need to improve upon law enforcement. We don't need another nomenclature to be playing the role that the Minerals Commission has been assigned. But that said, I am sure the NDC was implying maybe regulating the trade in minerals, because if you look at the functions of the Cocoa Board, they are actually more like playing a critical role in terms of trade of our cocoa beans. So they will buy from the farmers and then export. The value in that is that we are better able to account for our gold production. As we speak, we don't have a very reliable mechanism for accounting for our gold exports. What we do currently is to use records from our exports. That is what is recorded at Kotoka International Airport as a proxy for estimating gold production in Ghana. That is woefully inadequate. It leads to underestimation, because all the gold that crosses the border at Burkina Faso, Lomé border, Côte d'Ivoire and all that are not accounted for in that computation. And so I think the suggestion really is to get somebody, a body that will kind of regulate the trade activities so that we are able to better account for our gold production. But I suppose the PMMC can be supported to play that role, because if you look at it critically, the functions of PMMC is quite similar to that of a Cocoa Board. Of course, we know recently their functions were changed from actually mediating in the trade to now just being a regulator, just providing licenses and also serving as the government assayer. If we want a body like the Cocoa Board, of course, then we need to amend again the Act, the PMMC Act of Establishment, and add these other additional functions that Cocoa Board plays in the cocoa sector to the PMMC mandate.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Steve Mantel. Now, let me come to Godwin Ama before I circle back to Dr. Shibe. Godwin, between the two manifestos and the details of how each party wants to approach the fight against Galamsey and the issues in the mining sector, which of them would you say is superior or meets us at the point of our needs?
I think both manifestos, there are similarities in the approach. And I think the operationalization strategy will be what will really let us understand how these manifestos will be able to get the change that we want in the mining sector. For instance, if you are looking at an issue of traceability, within the next 5 years, if you look at the OECD guidelines that they brought, every gold that is exported, there should be that sense of traceability. Where is it coming from? Who produces? How is the state of the communities that produce this gold? Where is the money coming from to fund these operations? All these things will be accounted. And then you have assessments which will be done before your gold can be picked as a country. So the issue of traceability from the mine to the market is something that needs to be developed. And then at the end of the day, it will help us to trace the quantity of gold that is produced in this country, and then who even mining and where it ends up in terms of the market. Secondly, PMMC. If you look at the manifesto of the MPP, they said PMMC presence, they will resource them to be at the farm gates of these mines. I don't think we need that. We already have exporters and then dealers, so they can work together with the PMMC than to go in and then put in a lot of money to really establish these centers for the PMMC. I don't think it's something that for me or for as a miner and understanding the operations of the aggregators, it will not really work perfectly. It will be, you know, let me use the word, waste of state resources in terms of funds. So let them collaborate or let them work with the existing exporter that already licensed government to buy good and also export good. Forex also needs to be reviewed. Aggregators can be part of the project. Because if we are not able to do that, then it gives room for some of them to buy and smuggle it out. Reducing the withholding tax, it used to be 3%, and now it's reduced to 1.5%. And we've really seen the rise in the withholding tax due to the reduction and then gold coming in. But if you want to reduce it to 1%, all of them are talking about reclamation fund. How are we going to get the money? So for me, if we reduce it to 1%, and then the 0.5% of export is kept for reclamation, because we did something with the Minerals Commission that is called the small-scale sustainability fee, which 0.2% of export is retained in that kitty to raise our money to support the small-scale sector. So if we want to do something like reclamation, instead of reducing it to 1%, let's keep the 1.5%, use the 0.5% into a kitty, manage it to do the reclamation. I think it will also go a long way to help. Then,
Godwin,
hello.
I wanted to just, rush you a bit and say that, so if it came down to it and you had to choose, which of these manifestos do you think we really need, or has the solutions in there that we need? If you really had to.
All the two manifestos, as I've said, most of the things are similar.
Yeah, but there are some
most of them are similar in
right.
there. And the approach by each political party when they are in government it will really show how. But most of these things are said sometimes, and when it comes to implementation, it becomes a very difficult issue. For instance, the issue of cocoa, fighting illegal mining in cocoa farms.
Yeah.
Why have we really investigated why cocoa farmers are selling their farms to illegal operators? What is causing that? Are they getting value for the cocoa that they are producing? Some of them are even cutting their cocoa for other cash crops. So the cocoa board and then the states also need to understand why are they behaving that way and giving their lands to this illegal operation.
Okay.
If you just want to fight without understanding, then at the end of the day, you lose that fight because you don't even understand the drivers, why these people are selling their lands to this illegal operation. Right. Then lastly, beneficial ownership in terms of community mining. I think the community should own this community mining, not individuals. If you have it like the way we have community radios, the same way for community mining, where you have trustees from the community, it shouldn't be the chief that owns it, but trustees from the community, from the youth group, religious group, the palace and all that, they come together to own that concession. And then they will be what we call trustees for this community mining. And then if they want to partner an individual to provide them a service, then they will partner than individuals owning it. Then how do we call it community mining when you have individual owning them? I think that is not what even we proposed initially when it comes to the issue of community mining. So we need to review that one so that the beneficial owners should be the communities themselves then interest. And what is happening now, as we speak, there's so much distraction. You're looking at people mining close to the Accra, Kumasi, border areas and all. The rate at which people are mining because it's election year, we need to do something about it now. We cannot wait till next year and say, when I come to, what are we doing now?
Okay.
Whilst people are mining at the electric pylons, and at the end of the day, these pylons will fall and it will affect industries, everyone. What are we doing now as a country? Is it because it's an election year, we leave people to do what they want? Then, when we get to office, it will take us 1 year again to put ourselves together. Where will we be as a country? The impact of global warming is there. Climate change is also there. So we need to do something now. We shouldn't wait till we are elected into office.
Godwin, thank you. General Secretary for the Association of Small-Scale Miners. That means, Dr. Ashigbe, you have the final word. And I mean, just to write on the point that Godwin was making about both manifestos being the same and the issue about communities rather owning these concessions, the NPP wants to emphasize community benefits through local content policies and reinvestment of profits in the local infrastructure. The NDC, on the other hand, is advocating for direct financial support to Ghanaian entrepreneurs in the mining sector and a fund specifically for local development. So that is where there are some key differences. But, Doc, you have the final word. Between the two manifestos, which one meets us at the point of our needs? Again,
so I would not depart from what Dr. Mantiao and Gordon had said. It is, they sound similar, a lot of the things, they say it in different ways. And again, another thing we need to do in analyzing the manifestos, we need to read beyond just the places that they have dedicated for the issues of the mining. So, for example, you find out that NDC somewhere talks about Etiwa, that the fact that they're going to stop, minings like projects like Etiwa and all of that. So we need to actually look into it. But again, it's going to be, in the eating. The devil is in the detail. And so if we will have to look again at what all of them have done, it will be good to go back and look at what they've done. How much of Ghana's manifestos are converted into policies? How much of those policies are actually converted, go into the budget and are implemented? So we need to really unpack this and understand the bits. But as we've said, there are some elements that are not in it. So if you take the issue of the geological survey, for example, that the MPP talks, that's important to do. If you take the NDC talking about, a mining project like the Etiwa that is actually at the heart of our sustainability that they are going to take, that is good enough. So it will be difficult to really, from the two. All I would say is that there are elements that are absent in both manifestos that are very critical. And one of them is the independence of the regulatory bodies. It has to be so made a focal point that, the local, the regulatory bodies are independent. And I'll just re-echo again what, both of my colleagues have said. The issue about placing Ghanaians at the center of our mining industry. Yeah. If it means sacrificing, those of us living today, sacrificing because we have to invest to be able to get this ownership, let's do it. That's really very, it's important that we do that. And again, one of the things I would want to say is that we need to review the Minerals and Mining Act and create a PIAC, like the way we have the PIAC for the oil industry. Because you see, Parliament have shown that they really do not have any oversight over that. So let's make sure that in the mining sector as well, we are able to do that. And the issues about the polluter pay, it's also a very, very important thing that we also need to ensure that we would put into what it is that we have to do. So I believe that maybe a bit more detail in look at these manifestos and figuring out, but they need to, again, just to end on what Godwin said. Currently, the level of devastation that is taking place between August and December, if we don't stop it immediately, what will happen is that by January, both John Mahama and Baumia will not have any mining sector to apply their manifestos on. So we need to stop the damage that is happening currently. And I will urge the current president and the leadership today to take a cue from what Otumfuo has done, where he sees people who are under his purview, and he distils these people. We should make sure that the laws are biting. The Draw River place that is being under threat currently, let's be seen to be doing something about it. And the Chief Justice, please, Chief Justice, you need to get us translators that will deal with these Chinese that will also have been arrested. And the IGP also needs to deal. A case like Akonta Mining, we've petitioned him. That case is with him. Nothing has been heard of it. We need to deal with it now as we prepare for the tomorrow.
Dr. Kenneth Ashigbe, thank you so much. He's the convener for Media Coalition Against Illegal Mining. We also spoke to Dr. Steve Mantiao, the co-chair for Ghana Extractive Industry Transparency Initiative, as well as Godwin Ama, General Secretary, Association of Small-Scale Miners. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for helping us shed lights on the issues as stipulated or proposed in both manifestos in the fight against corruption. Well, this is the end of this belt of conversation. There's still more coming your way on the AM show. Don't go away.